My year-end list just keeps arriving later and later, and this one is even a bit shorter than my past lists. What can I say? Life is busy. Well, at least Black Midi didn't release an album in 2023, so this will be my first list without them at the number one spot. The question remains, though, how many King Gizzard albums are going to be on this list? No further introduction needed. You've seen the title. Let's get into my favorite albums of 2023. This year I'll start with 5 honorable mentions in no particular order, and the first is Microphone Fiend by Z-Loopers. Detroit rapper and Bruiser Brigade member Walter Moselle Williams lands on my list with his 9th studio LP. Z-Loopers is a rapper with one of the zaniest, most unique personalities around, and he continues to deliver his own distinct style of abstract, experimental hip-hop with elements of trap, and occasionally alternative R&B. On this project, he's as left field as ever. Every track he's hitting us either with his patented bizarro vocal inflections and exaggerations, or his voice is chipmunk pitched all the way up. It's very silly, it's very goofy, and it pairs well with the production, which is equally colorful and all over the place. The record is kind of scatterbrained in a fun bite-sized sampler type way, as it's over 35 minutes, but has 16 tracks, so basically every song is less than 3 minutes, and a lot of the songs are less than 2 minutes. The result is a listening experience that's disorganized and haywire, but in a really fun and entertaining way. A lot of the songs don't even have choruses, it's just Z-Looper hitting us with bar after bar, continuously rapping until the beat eventually switches. It's like party music for weirdos. If you want to hear one of the most idiosyncratic rappers in the game today, then Z-Loopers is an obvious choice. Next is a project that I'm still wrapping my head around as of this recording, and that has really grown on me since initial listen. It's Data by Tiny. This is Tiny's 3rd studio full-length, but it's his first solo album. Marcos Fernandez, or Tiny, is a Puerto Rican producer who has had a huge hand in recent years in the global success of reggaeton. He's produced for countless notable artists in the past, such as Bad Bunny, J Balvin, Mike Towers, Daddy Yankee, to name a few. With a resume like that, it makes the extensive feature list on this project not that surprising. However, take a closer look and you'll see a Fortet song, an Arca song, a song with the Marias. It's easy to see that Tiny is a passionate boundary pusher, a genre blender, a conductor who brings out the best in his collaborators, and he knows how to make bops. Even though this release is over an hour long, it just flies by. It's interesting the whole time. Each song brings something new, whether that's great guest performances, super fresh production, or interesting and fun transitions and beat switches. I can't lie, I'm certainly a reggaeton newbie, and this is the first reggaeton album to ever blow me away. I've got a lot to learn, but if this is the album that converts me, then I'm proud to say it. 3rd honorable mention goes to Pink Pantheress with her project Heaven Knows. Victoria Walker, or Pink Pantheress, rapidly achieved stardom through TikTok virality in 2021, which is the year she also dropped her debut mixtape, To Hell With It. Now she's come through with her debut studio album, which is a super fun, snappy 34-minute record that combines many different genres and influences together exceptionally well. Songwriting-wise, every track here is 2 or 3 minutes, so you could definitely call this a dance pop or an alt-pop album that seems heavily influenced by the early 2000s or even the 90s. Pink's vocals are very sweet, upbeat, and they have a bit of that futuristic hyperpop auto-tune, but it's not overbearing at all. Her singing actually gives the sound an R&B vibe. Where this project really shines is the production, which pushes the sound in a squarely electronic direction. It's fantastic and complements Pink's vocals perfectly. You have some seriously bouncy drum and bass and breakbeat, which I just love hearing on an album that's this poppy and mainstream. And I don't care how shameless it is, I love The Boy's a Liar Part 2 track with Ice Spice. I don't care how many times that song gets played on TikTok, it's an unadulterated pop rap banger. One of the biggest songs of 2023, and deservedly so. Alright, a couple metal picks now. Up next is A Man in His Nature by Ropes Inside a Hole. My introduction to the Italian post-rock, post-metal band Ropes Inside a Hole, or RIA as I guess they're also called, comes in the form of their 3rd studio full-length. Clocking in at only 6 songs but a sizable 46 minutes, these are some long, imposing, and satisfying prog songs that you can really sink your teeth into. Post-metal is still a genre that I'm slowly learning more about, but this is definitely a good taste of it for me. As you'd expect of a typical post-rock project though, this record is very meditative, moody, drawn out. Many of the songs kick off as these building, sort of doomy, sluggish slow burns, equipped with signature echoing guitar melodies, the occasional string arrangement, and even more occasionally floaty vocals. but always you know that you're eventually headed towards a violent boiling point. I really like the metal aesthetic here too. The overall vibe is pretty forlorn. I mean, the title of the second track, Others Are Gone, I Don't Care, is as angsty as it gets. And the emotional heaviness makes those crescendo moments all the more explosive. The record is dreamy yet brutal at the same time, which kinda adds some unpredictability to the already lengthy song structures. If you're a post-rock fiend and you're looking for a really strong, well put together record in 2023, then this is my pick for you. And with my final honorable mention, we've got Transylvanian Glare by Arnott Pavle. This is a bit of a random pick for me, not gonna lie. It's the second studio full-length from Finnish black metal band Arno Pavle. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a record that I'm still processing as of this recording. I really did push it off to the last second to select a 25th album to complete this list, and maybe it's the contrarian in me coming out a little, but I don't want to undersell this project at all. It's just over 29 minutes of muddy, blaring, vile black metal, and even hardcore punk to an extent. There is not a second wasted on this runtime. They're just going full throttle, balls to the wall the entire time. The main thing that has really stuck out to me is the very grainy, unpolished recording quality that gives it a very old school 80s quality while also sounding really DIY. The drumming and guitar riffing here are as savage as all hell, and the vocals sound like they're being delivered by a demonic bridge troll. You know, all usual suspects for black metal. I think the crust punk aspect of this project is also something I'm finding appealing, or at least intriguing, just because it's another genre I know very little about. I don't know, I've only listened to this a couple times so far, but something about it just won't leave my thoughts. It's definitely gritty and deafening enough to leave a strong impression, so if you want to get whiplash headbanging to a record, then this is as good an album as any to do that. Alright, that's it with the honorable mentions, but since I'm doing a top 25 this year instead of a usual top 30. Before we get into the ranked part of the list, just so I'm not skipping too much, I'm going to shout out 2 extra albums in my just missed list. These are albums from 2022 that I didn't include in my last year's list because I didn't have enough time to get to them, or maybe I wasn't aware of them at the time. Let's start with an artist I've already shouted out. That's going to be Little Simz with her project No Thank You. UK rap goddess Lil Simz would have made it 2 years in a row on my lists, but this album dropped on December 12th, 2022, so I just didn't get to it in time. Lil Simz' 5th studio project, and you could certainly view it as a victory lap celebration after her 2021 LP, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, put up huge numbers and cemented herself as one of the best rappers in the game today. Compared to Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, this is clearly a much more laid-back, low-key, nocturnal release from Simz that even dips into a neo-soul vibe. One thing that I didn't even know before this project, because it was much less obvious, is that apparently all of Simz' LPs have been produced by songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Inflo. Also, another frequent collaborator of Simz is Inflo's wife, Cleo Sol, who boasts multiple features on this record as well. If you didn't know, Inflo and Cleo Sol are possibly the 2 most prominent members of the enigmatic British band music collective Covert Operation Assault. All of that background info is to say that this project very deeply feels like a 60% Lil Simz and 40% Salt collaborative effort, which I love so much. Salt is a group that I've been a fan of for years at this point, and I think they're wildly underappreciated. This is a perfect match made in heaven. Both artists have previously showcased their talented ability to seamlessly blend various genres, with Salt in particular, elements of soul, funk, hip-hop, and even classical music are prominent in their work, and that contribution is on full display here. Basically, this album is Little Simz doing her thing, being braggadocious at times, but also rapping about self-discovery, self-love, self-worth, accompanied by several features from the always smooth, emotive, sexy Cleo Sol, all while being backed by the rich and diverse production of Salt. If that's not a formula for a great record, then I don't know what is. So yeah, Little Simz being amazing, no surprises there, but my second just missed list entry comes from a lesser known artist. That would be the Indonesian rock and vocal synth artist Ipo TSK with their record See You Later Stratocaster. This was actually my first real introduction to Vocaloid music. I don't know much about that whole scene really at all outside of the existence of Hatsune Miku, and I don't even honestly recall listening to any of her songs. I don't think I could point them out. So shout out to my friend Himi for putting me on this project because I really enjoyed it. Genre-wise, I would put this somewhere in the J-rock sphere, but with many emo, alt-rock, and even pop-punk tendencies. It has a really nice lo-fi fuzz, but also the effects and tuning on the vocals gives everything an electronica vibe. Sonically, I wouldn't call this music experimental, but the blending of so many different sounds, influences, textures and even the technology on this project makes it a pretty avant-garde, cutting-edge release. This record really opened my eyes to the possibilities and potential of Vocaloid music. Maybe it's because I've been under a rock with this world, but I feel like there's still a lot of potential to uncover, even though apparently Vocaloid software has been available since 2004. As far as I know, English Vocaloid music in particular is really untapped. And I know I've been going on and on about the vocals, but the guitar playing and the drumming are really killer here as well. Some of these songs have really sick guitar solos. I'm a bit out of my element here, but regardless, I love this project. If you want a rock album that's out of the ordinary, that's extremely modern, and that's pushing the boundary of what's even possible in music today, then give this a spin. Alright, let's get into this ranked top 20 list and kick things off with a guilty pleasure pick. Number 20 is Perfect Picture by Hannah Diamond. Yeah, I like Hannah Diamond. Say of me what you will, I don't care. UK electropop, bubblegum bass, and PC music queen Hannah Diamond comes through with their second studio full-length, and I'm just as partial to it, if not a bit more than her debut. I think I've made it transparent at this point, and will continue to do so on this list, that I enjoy bittersweet, sentimental music. Anytime an artist can sound happy and sad at the same time, that's probably going to win me over. And Hannah does a great job of that. I mean, of course, this is obviously a very bright, sugary, ultra-modern dance pop album. And sure, there's at least a few cute, endearing love songs, but also if you listen a bit closer, you'll hear Hannah singing about giving yourself positive affirmations, finding a balance between being perfect and authentic, faking it till you make it. I think Hannah's sincerity and vulnerability is a really interesting juxtaposition to the glossy, robotic, hyperpop style that PC music artists usually bring. It's like hearing an AI having fun while trying to process human emotions. I don't know if that's the most enticing description I can give, but just know that this is a fantastic record, especially for fans of alt pop. At number 19, I have Forgotten Feels by Slow Magic. The anonymous future-based producer Slow Magic is here with his 5th studio LP. I've known Slow Magic for some time, shout out to my sister for that, but this just happened to be my first exposure to a full record of his, and I really enjoyed it. Like a lot of other electronic artists at the moment, this release is kind of following the Porter Robinson nurture wave of dance music that's introspective and vaguely melancholic, yet simultaneously heartwarming and inviting. I don't make that comparison as a complaint by any means. We of course live in an era where it seems like more music than ever before, regardless of genre, is focused on preserving your mental health, dealing with pain and unhappiness, maintaining relationships, and finding peace and solitude. Just based on the album title and track titles, this project is definitely going for all that, and it does so in a thoughtful, reassuring way. The beats are very bouncy and the production is quite vibrant. I wouldn't strictly call it EDM, as overall it's actually pretty mellow and dreamlike throughout. Most of the tracks are also instrumental, save for some vocal sampling and looping. Not an electronic release that will necessarily keep you on your feet the entire time, but it will definitely make you bob your head and leave you feeling optimistic. Next at 18 is Rat Saw God by Wednesday. This is the 5th studio album from the North Carolina indie rock outfit Wednesday. It's my introduction to the band, and it has me excited to dive deeper into their catalog. Now, I love me some genre fusions, and this band showcases what I think is an extremely distinct blend of fairly tame indie rock and alt country, but also unexpectedly some legit noise rock and even shoegaze. If anyone knows other bands quite like this, then please let me know in the comments because I'm dying to hear more. What I really want to call attention to is the tremendous, inconceivable behemoth second track, Bull Believer, where the band flexes their true talent. This has to be one of the best singles of the year. If you have not heard this song, then I highly implore you to put me on pause and dedicate the next 8.5 minutes of your life to listening to it, because it essentially contains an incredibly unhinged plot twist. I want you to hear it spoiler free, so please do that if you can. Otherwise, I'll get into spoilers now. You've been warned. The second track is split into 2 parts, Bull and Believer, and man, when that second half outro hits, it's legitimately one of the most savage, destructive musical catastrophes that 2023 has to offer. And it's crazy that this is just the second track, and the first track is only 90 seconds. Like, what a jarring, shocking way to start your album. The rest of the track list, perhaps thankfully, is not nearly as demanding. It's definitely much more general indie rock after this point, but the band has a lot of gusto and grunginess and personality. I really like the track Chosen to Deserve, as it's basically the lead singer Carly Hartzman airing out all of her dirty laundry about how trashy she is to her partner MJ Lenderman, who happens to also be in the band, so it's an interesting, albeit strangely voyeuristic love song. Please listen to this record if you can, but extra please listen to the song Bull Believer because it's very awesome, and I mean like literally awesome as in awe-inspiring. At number 17, I've got a split album, Sadness Abriction, just titled Sadness Abriction. The one-man shoegaze depressive black metal project Sadness makes it 2 years in a row of appearing on my year-end lists, but this time he had some help from yet another one-person shoegaze project, Abriction. They come together here for a collab project that's only 5 tracks but clocks in at a massive 75 minutes. That idea might turn some listeners off, but for me, a well-executed prog rock album is a simple pleasure in life. This project does a lot of the same things for me as Tortuga did in 2022. It's some really solid lo-fi emo shoegaze. Like I said last year, Sadness does an incredible job of blending feelings of despair and nostalgia together seamlessly. I also mentioned last year that the production style really resonates with me. The music is certainly dense and noisy, but I wouldn't call it loud. There's screen vocals, crackling distorted guitar, but everything is covered in a kind of muted, hazy veneer, which somehow turns this from sounding raw and heavy into sounding rather warm and sentimental. Honestly, I don't know if I can describe it better than that. These two artists really just combine happiness and sadness in a unique way. From the Abriction side of things, I would say she takes a more dream pop approach. While she also serves up some killer screamed vocals, she's decidedly less black metal and maybe even more post-rock, but still squarely shoegaze. She's kind of a perfect fit for Sadness's style in that she's very similar in a lot of ways. Lo-fi, atmospheric, bittersweet, and of course bringing some epic songwriting given the album's total runtime. But overall, she brings her own flavor to this partnership, and personally, I really enjoy projects that feature both male and female vocals, so that's a nice touch. My bias is showing, as it always does, but yeah, I love Sadness. I love this project. I got introduced to a cool new artist in Abriction. Shoegaze lovers should 100% check this project out. Moving on to number 16, here's my pick for the hip-hop purists and old-school heads. It's Glorious Game by L. Michaels Affair and Black Thought. Tariq Trotter, otherwise known as Black Thought, is the highly renowned and experienced Philadelphia rapper, lyricist, lead MC of The Roots. He already frequently comes up in greatest rapper of all time conversations, but while that's happening, he's still steadily putting together a marvelous solo career. From his Stream of Thought EPs to his collab project last year, Cheat Codes with producer Danger Mouse. This year he graced us by collabing with the NYC funk band L. Michaels Affair to bring us a punchy, soulful jazz rap project that's a thoroughly enjoyable listen. The production all over this project is exceptional. It's not super grandiose and it's not trying to be. The live instrumentation is smooth, summery, clean, and easygoing. In that regard, it's actually kind of similar to a Roots album. It's an immaculate vibe. And of course, it's perfect table setting for Black Thought. He's doing what he does best and coming at you with engaging flows and hard-hitting bars track after track. There's actually only a few choruses on this project, but that's not a problem at all when the rapping is this sharp. I don't have much else to say. This is just one of those projects where you get exactly what you want. In this case, if you want some high-quality vintage East Coast hip-hop in a neatly packaged 31-minute project, then look no further. Next at 15 is Seeking the Sources of Streams by Cicada. This is an instrumental classical album from Cicada, a modern classical Taiwanese band consisting of violin, cello, piano, and acoustic guitar. They've been releasing music since 2010, but this seems to be their breakout album, and I'm really happy about that. If it isn't obvious from the band name or the album name or the track titles or the wonderful artwork, this group places a very strong emphasis on the outdoors, from animals to the ocean to mountains to water. All their music seems to be in dedication to the simple yet sparkling beauty of Mother Nature. There's even a concept that ties all these tracks together, as the album is meant to document a hiking expedition, wandering through the Taiwanese mountains and valleys, literally seeking the sources of streams, but also just appreciating all that's around us. There's a vague destination in mind, but at the same time, there's so much room to just explore and appreciate. That's exactly what this music is like. It's an extremely lush and immersive listening experience. The compositions go through so many phases, sometimes being playful and adventurous, other times being more reserved and relaxed. I love the delicate balance that's struck between the different instruments, with plenty of woodwinds being included on the studio album as well. From a technical standpoint, the performances are very skillful and agile. Each band member seems to constantly switch leads every couple minutes to maintain a lovely sonic diversity, and it all comes together so effortlessly. I honestly don't have any standout songs I want to highlight, as I think you should just listen to this thing from front to back. It's a wonderful album to mellow out to or use as an ambient soundscape, or maybe even gently cradle you to sleep. This is certainly one of the most gorgeous albums that you'll hear in 2023. Next up, I'm giving my number 14 spot to Desire, I Want to Turn Into You by Caroline Polachek. Alt-pop darling Caroline Polachek has been at the music game for quite a while now, under a couple different stage names and also as a member of the indie pop duo Chairlift. This year she came through with her second studio full-length under her own name. This whole project is such a treat. Caroline is one of those artists that makes me hopeful for the future of mainstream pop music, because while her songs are undeniably alluring, catchy, and accessible, they're also imaginative, genre-bending, and unconventional. A perfect example is the music video for the flamenco pop banger Sunset, which is maybe my favorite pop song of the year. The way that several images and videos are layered on top of each other is such a simple concept, but the presentation is so artful and polished that it really leaves a lasting impression. Plus, the sharp guitar melody and Caroline's free-flowing emotional vocalizations are to die for. Also, I really love the track Fly to You, featuring Grimes and Dido of all people. It's a strangely unexpected collaboration, but it goes over extremely well. It's easy to draw comparisons to other ambitious, forward-thinking pop divas of the past, like Björk or Kate Bush, as Caroline manages to jam-pack so much depth and variety into just 45 minutes. Vocally, she is of course a force to be reckoned with. Instrumentally, the album features extensive writing and production credits from the PC Music label's Danielle Harl, which certainly adds up, as there's an ever-present down-tempo vibe to the whole thing, and you could even get away with calling this an electropop or synthpop release. This album is the culmination of years of experience and honing your craft, resulting in a romantic and delightful record that will melt your heart. I really think the sky's the limit for whatever Caroline wants to do. With unlucky number 13, you already knew it was coming. I'm picking Scarin' the Hose by JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown. Possibly the most terminally online album of all time, is also one of the consensus rap albums of the year, and it's a great choice. It's the long-awaited collab album from two titans in experimental hip-hop. Truly two artists who are pioneers and visionaries in the modern hip-hop landscape. I mean, Danny Brown is easily one of the most instantly recognizable rappers ever, just because of his one-of-a-kind vocal delivery. He unironically sounds like a squawking parrot on the mic, and I mean that in the most loving way possible. His 2016 project, Atrocity Exhibition, is maybe the greatest experimental hip-hop album of all time. And then there's JPEG Mafia, who has seemingly just come out of nowhere and taken over the underground hip-hop scene by storm in just a few years. This really is a joint effort that was fated to happen, and it's everything fans could have hoped for. The production, which was done entirely by Peggy himself, love that, is exactly what you want out of a project like this. The beats are futuristic, bombastic, and ear-splitting as all hell. It's a never-ending assault of weird, chaotic samples, noises, breakbeats, sound effects, and totally in-your-face bass and percussions. I mean, they even took an NFL Sunday type beat on the track Perfect and somehow made it a banger. Of course, Danny and Peggy are on their rap A-game here. Again, this album was hyped for a while, but it's still just so badass to hear both of these guys exchanging bars, track after track. They're on the same team, but simultaneously, it's like they're trying to one-up each other in the freakiest and most outlandish rap battle ever. One of the few acts on this list that I got to see live this year as well, and it was a total rager. They even brought out Red Veil to perform his feature on Kingdom Hearts Key, which was an unforgettable moment. On to number 12, it's 93696 by Liturgy. Finally, I get to talk about Liturgy in one of these lists. Transcendental black metal extraordinaire, philosopher, fellow Brooklynite Ravina Hunt Hendricks and her band Liturgy come through with their 6th studio full-length. It's a whopping 82-minute double album. Liturgy fans already know how sensational and ambitious this band can be, but this release might even be taking that to new heights. Liturgy is like if biblically accurate angels descended from heaven during the rapture and started playing the heaviest metal music you've ever heard. You've got dizzying blast beats, dissonant and shrill guitars, aggressive scream vocals, and uncommon time signatures, all ingredients for great black metal. But then on the studio recordings, you've got classical vocals and choir, lyrics about God and light and theology, strings and flutes, piano and glockenspiel, weird electronic glitches, all epically arranged and composed to hit you with some of the most mind-blowing meltdowns any band has to offer. It all culminates in a legendary, cathartic, end-of-world soundtrack that is most certainly not for the faint of heart. As we've come to expect from this band, the songwriting is both staggering and astonishing, especially since this is a double album. You've got an 8-minute track, a 9-minute track, 2 14-minute tracks. Certainly this is a very demanding project to digest in just one sitting, but Liturgy has always done a great job of creating very dynamic music. Yes, the metal portions are undeniably insane and hellacious, but you have trackable moments too. The track Angel of Hierarchy is a 3-minute, very calming instrumental keyboard track, and it's followed by Red Crown 2, which is a 2-minute instrumental flute or recorder track. Contrast those, though, with my favorite song here, Kayla, which is petrifying and evil, but also soaring and thunderous. That middle section is one of the most indescribable musical moments of the year. You've got spine-chilling screamed vocals and a nasty-as-hell guitar breakdown, while an absolutely angelic-like opera singer is just going off in the background. What a special song by a special band. If you want to hear music that's boundary-pushing as it gets, then Liturgy is a prime candidate. Just outside the top 10 is number 11, and it's The Final Nail in the Coffin by Agony OST. Agony OST is an ambient house, future garage, American artist, ? There isn't much verified information online. I even discovered them completely randomly through Spotify's, shuffling algorithm. Ironically, though, it came on my shuffle while listening to Sewer Slut, whose real name is apparently June, so I'm just going to call her June for the rest of this video. Anyways, internet sleuths are somewhat confident that June and Agony OST are the same person. After all, the artists are linked to each other on YouTube and Spotify. Also, Agony OST is signed to the label Mad Decent, which is Diplo's record label, and I'm assuming, and many others are assuming, that it would be very random for a completely unknown, mysterious artist to get signed to a pretty major label like that unless they had some credibility or portfolio to show off. Putting this unconfirmed hypothesis aside, though, Agony OST makes me miss June a little less. All 4 of you longtime Disc Junkie followers might recall that I gave her an honorable mention on my 2021 list, which was right before she went on an indefinite hiatus. This project definitely feels like a dark, heady, spiritual successor, and I really love it. Sonically, I'd compare this to Burial, but having a bit more energy and also a bit more grime. In some ways, I think it even compares favorably to June's material. It's ever so slightly more marketable. Certainly the artist name is, while still being moody and addictive and having those same glitchy, distorted quirks. Also, this album clocks in at just 40 minutes, which is not terribly long at all, definitely an improvement over previous June albums. And if you want more, Agony OST's second album, Halfway House Near Me, is already available. The idea of this being the return of June, while, it's unconfirmed, it would make me very happy. But either way, Agony OST clearly has her seal of approval. Lovers of atmospheric drum and bass, myself included, can rejoice. Alright, let's break into this top 10 and start things off with How to Sink Slowly by Broken Teeth. Kim Mina, better known by his stage name Broken Teeth, is a South Korean shoegaze, post-rock, slowcore musician who lands on my list with his second studio full-length. Apparently last year, Broken Teeth managed to get in contact and start collaborating with a huge swath of awesome underground artists in South Korea, a few of which I've discussed on this channel. I'm talking Paranul, Asian Glow, Delazir, Turquoise Death, Ezra Verrier, names that a casual music fan might not recognize, but all you need to know is that this is like an Avengers-style gathering for indie nerds. I still don't know exactly how they're all associated with each other, whether it's like an in-person music scene or a record label or even just like a Discord server, but enough about all those other people. Let's talk about this wonderful project here. It's that super layered, lush, ghostly, whimsical blend of shoegaze and dream pop that I love so much. I suppose it's nothing groundbreaking for either genre, but it's extremely well done. The progressions and compositions are beautiful. It's a soft yet dramatic wall of sound that, like the album title suggests, you will slowly sink into. Another one of those projects where I don't have any specific tracks that I want to highlight. The whole thing is just so cohesive and airy that I only ever want to listen to it from start to finish. As an aside, every time I reflect on albums like these, I find it so fascinating that At face value, shoegaze and dream pop seem like two very different and even contrasting music scenes. They actually have so much in common, from the misty atmospheres and textures to the heavy use of effects and ethereal vocals. If you're not a huge shoegaze fan, then hopefully, potentially, this is a great choice to finally win you over. Not only that, it's also a great lens into a modern, unbelievable music scene that's quickly gaining popularity. Next at number 9 is Alchemy by Disclosure. The highly celebrated house UK garage brotherly duo hailing from England is back with their 4th studio full-length. At just under 38 minutes, this album is all killer and no filler. Every time I listen to this, even though it's not quite trailblazing or anything like that, I just have zero complaints. It's cliche to say, but it's just a vibe. It's a really pristine vibe. Now, I've always had a soft spot for very basic, feel-good EDM, but that's not to discredit Disclosure at all. Of course, their 2013 album, Settle, was really groundbreaking and ambitious and a total game changer. Contrast that album with Alchemy, though, which has no features and no samples. Apparently, it's Disclosure's way of celebrating their independence from major record labels, and I think that effort goes a long way. Instead of making widely appealing chart toppers, they've taken a slight but confident left turn. There's a greater focus on synths and percussion as opposed to catchy choruses. In essence, it's a showcase of two brothers just having fun making an EDM album in its simplest form. Not following any particular trends, not being too adventurous, but not making any missteps either. Making music they want to make. And they've got nothing to prove. If they want to release a short, sweet, funky, groovy, deep house project, then I'm all for it. Even though there's no features, the boys are more than fine with laying down their own vocals, blurring the line between rave anthems and dance pop bangers. And of course, since it's Disclosure, it's kind of a given that the production is top-notch. Always important for me as well with electronic albums is the pacing, and on this project, the flow is soothing and ethereal. It's energetic, but it's silky smooth. Any way you slice it, this is an undeniably intoxicating album for dancing the night away. At number 8, I've got Devil Music by Portrayal of Guilt. This release is technically billed as an EP, but it clears the 30-minute mark, so I don't have any problems including it on this list. It comes from the Austin, Texas black metal screamo band Portrayal of Guilt, who I've been a fan of for a little while now and saw live a couple years ago. I discovered them in 2021 when they dropped their second studio album, We Are Always Alone. With this 2023 10-track release though, there's actually a really unique concept. The first 5 songs are kind of exactly what I want out of this band. It's some of the most infernal, gruesome metal music you're going to hear all year. Really just an unforgiving onslaught of harsh guitar and blood-curdling vocals compounded with punishing drum fills and blast beats. Generally, awesome metal music. Also, I've always loved this band's production style. They always bring a great raw and crunchy presentation to their sound. Where things get really interesting, though, is that the second 5 songs are actually just renditions of the first 5 songs, but the guitar and bass are replaced with orchestral string and horn instruments, effectively creating chamber metal music? I don't know if that's even a thing, but if it isn't, then Portrayal of Guilt gets to be the creator of a new genre. There's even an excellent, if not creepy and unsettling, black and white short film that accompanies this half of the project. Truly, if you weren't paying attention and didn't notice the instrumental switch, you'd still find that the second half sounds just as hellish as the first. Somehow these guys managed to take what are normally ornate and regal sounding instruments and turn them into soul-crushing, satanic nightmare fuel. Although of course keeping the harrowing vocals does a lot to preserve the diabolical energy. Overall, I think this is a great project, compositionally and stylistically, and on top of that, I just have to give it even more brownie points for being such a standout, original experiment, really. If you love metal music and want to hear something that's kind of out of this world, then definitely give this album a try. Let's move on to number 7 with Last by Loma Prieta. I've been meaning to listen to this San Francisco-based screamo post-hardcore band for a little while, and this year I just decided to skip their newest release. I'm very pleased with that decision, as this project absolutely kicks ass. Also, I've recently learned that apparently scrams is another word that fans affectionately use in place of screamo. So that's interesting, if not a bit confusing. Anyway, I feel like every year I end up having a token metal or hardcore album, maybe a couple token albums, that place highly based primarily on the fact that the project brings a head-spinning amount of kinetic energy. And this year, it's Loma Prieta. This album is as crazy and as passionate as any other release you're going to hear this year. It's loud, hectic, and ferocious, yet unmistakably confessional and emotional. Take the song Fire in Black and White, for example. The guitar and vocals are so anthemic and awesome, yet you have this incessant snare drum frantically pounding away that really keeps you on edge. It's both anxious and beautiful all at once. There's also a nice balance with some moments of clarity, like the end of the 8th track, Symbiose, where the singing is quite clear and the instrumentation, while it's still energetic, maybe it's a bit more well-rounded or lucid. It's cool-down moments like this that are definitely appreciated and needed, as if an entire mosh pit were taking a collective breather. Especially since the beginning of the very next track, Dreamlessness, we're thrust right back into a panicked, frenzied bedlam. One final thing I love about this project is that it effectively has two really excellent candidates for closing tracks back-to-back, so it ends on such a high note. The second to last track, Glare, is the longest song here, and that build-up towards the end is so epic and positive, but it's contrasted with the true closing track, LLC, which feels like the band giving it their all and producing one final spine-tingling, hair-raising detonation with all the gas that they have left in the tank. I mean, the drumming here, my god, it's so fast, just like dizzyingly fast and urgent. So yeah, we're getting up there now, and this is certainly one of my favorite albums of the year. For my number 6 spot, I have The Happiest Times I Ever Ignored by Hayden Pedigo. Hayden Pedigo is a Texan singer-songwriter that I discovered this year, and this is, I think, a surprising pick even for myself, because at a high level, it's just a very modest, easy-listening instrumental folk/Americana album. That's all there is to it. It's primarily acoustic guitar with some garnishes of slide guitar and keyboard, and some electric but undistorted guitar too. But ultimately, it really is a very texture and mood-based album, yet as simple and light as it is, I can't bring myself to move it any lower on this list. It's bare bones, yet it's entrancing, it's comforting, it's beautiful, it's emotional without even needing to utter a single word. It's really just a pleasant, peaceful listen from start to finish. And even in its simplicity, it still manages to be one of the most unique listening experiences I had all year. I think part of it for me is I barely play guitar anymore, but this is the kind of music I wish I could create. It's super DIY, there's no singing at all, and the guitar playing, while it certainly sounds extremely well practiced, it doesn't sound impossible to learn. It has just the right amount of nuance to keep your attention and even stun you if you're listening closely. It's almost an ambient album, yet I would never strictly label someone playing acoustic guitar as merely being ambient. I will say that it's music you could have on in the background while doing something else if you want to put your mind at ease, but it's also ready to welcome you with open arms if you choose to devote your full attention. Rate Your Music labels this as American primitivism, otherwise known as American primitive guitar, which is completely new to me. Apparently it's a combination of country blues finger-picking techniques with non-traditional harmonic and melodic material. It has an exceptionally minimalist quality, emphasizing repetition and the raw beauty of the acoustic guitar. It's certainly evocative of being completely immersed in nature, and like you're sitting in a pasture or staring out over a serene lake or gazing at the stars or watching an idyllic sunset. So if any of those vibes sound interesting to you, or if you're looking for something that's just a tad bit off the singer-songwriter beaten path, then I highly recommend this project. Breaking into the top 5, I've got Nemesta by TDK. Please excuse me for being reductive, but since there was no new Black Midi album this year, I needed to satisfy my hunger for a brutal, manic, jazz-tinted cacophony elsewhere, and here it is. Avant-garde prog metal hardcore noise band TDK, or Turdomkin, is apparently from the separatist Republic of Dobrina and has proclaimed themselves as Bulgaria's biggest disappointment. Okay, I came across this group this year, although this is their 3rd studio full-length. I can't help making the Black Midi comparison because this music does really remind me of them, but I don't say that to take away from the originality or uniqueness of TDK at all. This band is an undeniable standout, and it's a true accomplishment to sound as insane and apocalyptic as this band does. Discovering albums like this honestly inspires me to do what I do, scouring the random corners of the internet to find music that's right on the cutting edge. I'm a sucker for albums that successfully combine a wide variety of genres. There's no shortage of that here. The performances, production are very punky and loose, while also having a mathy pace. The songwriting and arrangements are so rewarding and get better and better the more you listen. You have freaky, poetry-esque vocals being sung or rush-spoken, lovely and dynamic usage of saxophone, and even random samples of what sounds like Bulgarian pop songs. My favorite track is definitely Kazvaha. That's a track that is certified to just completely fry your brain and give you an aneurysm. The second half of that track especially is just so deranged, with what sounds like discordant violin in the background, anguish screaming, drums, guitar, and bass just pummeling you faster and faster, all while this haunted bellowing saxophone is hanging in the background. It's just one of those astonishing, eye-opening moments in music this year that really blew me away and left a strong impression. So yeah, probably not for the lighthearted, but if you want to hear some truly weird, in-your-face, outstanding music, then you gotta give these guys a listen. Next up, number 4, it's Food for Worms by Shame. London post-punk band Shame makes it 2 out of 3 years being on my year-end lists. As is natural with a lot of bands and artists, Shame has really evolved and matured their sound, but they've done it without sacrificing their core appeal. This record certainly has its abrasive, unpolished, off-the-wall moments and aspects, but it's also a lot more spacious and reflective and challenging and purposeful. This project easily has one of the band's most epic songs. Right out of the gate, the intro track, Fingers of Steel, I mean, that chorus is just so anthemic. It's like something out of a laboratory that was specially designed to be sung by an entire crowd of drunk, crying fans at a concert venue. The track Adderall is another highlight. Both of these tracks, in fact, are pretty introspective in lyrical content, talking about friendship, family, frustration at not being able to change people or solve every problem, and coming to terms with accepting people for who they are and continuing to love them. But let's not get too sappy here. This wouldn't be a Shame album with at least a few ragers. The second track, Six Pack, goes so hard. That frenetic guitar line and drum beat, man, if that doesn't get you grooving, then I don't know what will. And speaking of six packs, if you want a six pack, then all you have to do is see this band live. You'll burn so many calories by the end of their set that your abs will be chiseled. Genuinely, these guys are one of my favorite bands to see live right now. Lead singer Charlie Steen brings an unmatched energy and charisma to every show. Lastly, I want to compliment the stellar songwriting on this release, with Different Person being a standout track. It goes through so many crescendos and decrescendos and twists and turns. It even feels a bit disjointed at times, but man, it sends you off in a bombastic fashion. Shame continues to push their boundaries, wearing their vulnerability and passion on their sleeves. Each of their albums has taken a different direction, and I love seeing the band continue to develop. One of my favorite rock bands making music today. Please do yourself a favor, check out this project, and also attend one of their live performances. You will have a blast. Alright, moving on up, at number 3 we have Variables by Alchemist. Alchemist is a British jazz pianist and rapper. Although this is my introduction to him, he's been releasing music since 2015. I have a lot of catching up to do because this record is masterful. It's primarily an upbeat instrumental jazz fusion album that has everything I want from modern jazz. Of course, the musicianship is top-notch. The drumming is relentless and excellent. The progressions are complex and colorful, constantly keeping you on your toes as the main instrument that's improvising under the spotlight sporadically passes the baton from keys to guitar to trumpet or even clarinet. The production as well is spectacular. The bass tones are a bit lo-fi and shadowy, yet clearly emphasized, and the mix of acoustic and electric guitars is cerebral and elegant. Ironically, despite the blue album cover, I think this project has a lot of overall very warm, hypnotic, and welcoming sounds. My favorite tracks are probably the opener and closers, so a strong start and finish. The closer track, BC in particular, is just a mean, intense, blistering jazz banger that I keep going back to. That's all fine and dandy. However, where the record really gets interesting is that it also sports what I would call a bit of a concept, because in between the 6 to 7 minute instrumental jazz tracks, you get these shorter 2 to 4 minute laid back jazz rap and neo soul songs that significantly chill things out. It's like the band is taking a smoke break in between their energetic jam sessions. It's not exactly experimental, but it's obvious that Alpha had a strong vision for this release and that he isn't afraid to mix and match different influences and styles to bring us a musical buffet of sorts. It's a simple idea, but it's also fresh and exciting and executed wonderfully to create a very dynamic and uniquely paced jazz album. This would be an otherwise straightforward contemporary jazz album that has everything I'm looking for, but that extra bit of seasoning with the hip-hop and soul tracks takes it to another level. I love how this record sounds, I love the overall approach and intention, and I really love the overall concept, which I just don't think I've ever heard pulled off before like this. It's my jazz album of the year, and I think it's a must listen for 2023. On to my second favorite album of the year. It's simply titled The Record, and it comes from the indie folk and rock dream team, Boy Genius. Boy Genius is an American supergroup composed of Phoebe Bridgers, Julian Baker, and Lucy Dacus. I love Phoebe Bridgers. She is simply phenomenal. Maybe my pick for the most notable singer-songwriter making music today. But that's no disrespect to Julian Baker or Lucy Dacus. Lucy's 2018 album, Historian, was one of my favorite albums of that year. And I think I've mentioned before that Julian's 2015 project, Sprained Ankle, was the first time I ever liked any slowcore album. Back in 2018, the trio initially wowed us with their debut self-titled EP. I remember when I first listened to that release, and the idea of just getting to hear these three incredible voices singing together, passing verses and choruses back and forth for several tracks in a row, just blew my mind. I will admit that the novelty and mind-blowing effect has worn off a bit now that the surprise factor is gone, but I can't deny that these three masterminds finally combining to release their long-awaited full-length album was well worth the wait. Right off the bat, we're greeted with the core appeal of this band on the intro track, Without You, Without Them. Three immensely talented and emotionally potent singers, all harmonizing, sharing beautiful chemistry, and gracing us with a heavenly a cappella track. It's a simple yet direct and show-stopping tone setter. In a lot of ways, this album runs a bit like a compilation of songs individually written by Phoebe, Julian, and Lucy. If you're familiar with their three different approaches to tone and songwriting, then it tends to be pretty obvious which one of them is kind of taking the reins on each track. In a way, I think it might have even been more gratifying to hear a deeper collaboration from all three members, but at the same time, I do really love what we've been given, and each member's presence is still clearly felt on every track. To look at it in a more positive light, it's like they're effectively sharing the spotlight equally. Julian is clearly taking charge on the punky, grungy second track, $20. An awesome pseudo-album opener that I think showcases the angstier energy that she brings to this party. And dang, I did not know Phoebe could scream like that until I found this recording. Then comes a stark tonal shift in the song, Emily, I'm Sorry, which is everything I want out of a Phoebe Bridgers song. It's got her signature hazy aesthetic like a dance in slow motion. Also, the music video is directed by Kristen Stewart, of all people. Then the next track, True Blue, feels like an extension of Lucy's previous studio album, Home Video, in that it explores ideas of leaving home and finding yourself. It also talks about unconditional love, either in the romantic sense or in just a general interpersonal relationship sense. That's fitting because these three musicians together have become a de facto symbol of friendship. They probably did not ask for that to happen, but they're championing that status flawlessly. Check out this album, and then do not stop there. Check out the solo albums of all three of these artists because they all rule. Alright, the last stop on my list, my number one album of 2023. You might have seen this coming, but I gotta give it to the Melbourne Aussie boys, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, with their album Petrodraconic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night, an Annihilation of Planet Earth and the Beginning of Merciless Damnation. Yeah, that's what it's called. Listen, guys, I don't know what to tell you. King Giz has trained me to expect excellence. Give me a Metal King Giz album, and I'm gonna listen to it 100 times. Plain and simple. The Australian psych rock masters of doing whatever they want, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, tops my 2023 list with their 24th studio project. It was already clear as day after their fantastic 2019 metal album, which I didn't have Disc Junkie at the time, but that was also my album of the year, Infest the Rat's Nest. That project alone made it clear that these guys were not merely uneducated metal posers. No, they are true worshippers of thrash metal, and they paid homage to it in the best way possible. Now, fast forward with Petrodragonic Apocalypse, it's becoming evident that not only are they diehard metal fans, but possibly also some of the best makers of metal music today. This album, as the title suggests, is straight fire. For starters, King Giz has never shred as hard as they have here. Even compared to Infest the Rat's Nest, I think this album easily has the most complex, fast-paced, and impressive guitar work of any King Giz record. The sheer speed of the melodies on this project speak volumes to how highly skilled these guys really are on their instruments, and the fact that many moments spill into speed metal can't be ignored. Some of the guitar leads and solos are played searingly fast, and every track is out to melt your face right off from the start. The bass and drumming performances are killer as well, and the production is flawless. On the studio recordings, it often sounds like just one guitar, one bass, drums, and Stu on vocals, and that's it. They don't need any bells or whistles to hide behind at all. They're just really showcasing their virtuosity and playing the ever-living shit out of their instruments. I gotta give props to the drummer Cavs. As much as I love King Giz, I will say that in the past when they had two drummers in Cavs and Eric Moore, it really was just a gimmick. They definitely did not capitalize on that resource nearly as much as they could have outside of the album Flying Microtonal Banana. Now that Cavs is the only drummer though, maybe he feels like he has something to prove. Whatever the case is, he absolutely showed up on this project. A lot of the times, he even sounds like two drummers since the beats and the fills are just so rapid and relentless. I also love the very proggy approach that's taken to their songwriting this time around, as the record is nearly 49 minutes but only consists of 7 tracks. Really gives each song a lot of room to breathe and unfold, even giving you some much needed cooldown moments before inevitably going back to beating you to a pulp. And I cannot end this video without shouting out maybe my favorite song of the year, Dragon. This song is irrefutable proof that King Giz knows how to write truly engaging, terrific metal music. The reprise at the end of the song is one of the sickest, nastiest, gnarliest musical moments of the year. So yeah, King Giz still at their peak, still operating in their prime, still giving us incredible music, more than 20 albums into their illustrious Hall of Fame career, and that just makes me so happy. And there you have it, another Disc Junkie list in the books. I think that makes it 5 King Giz albums that I've shouted out now in just 3 years. I hope that doesn't make me too predictable, but hey, I gotta live my truth. I hope you got some good recommendations out of this. Please comment and let me know if you end up checking out any of these projects. Let me know if there's any albums that I missed, all that good stuff. And thanks for listening. See you later.